Good morning and welcome to Better Waste Services episode 5, I think this is. As always, I'm joined by Louise Lambourne in her posh studio somewhere in the south of England. Good morning, Louise.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing?
I'm very well, and that brings us nicely to our guest today from Aberdeen, Neil Taylor, who's kindly joined us to talk about himself and Aberdeen and a little bit about communal bins as well.
Possibly.
Yeah. So good morning, Neil.
Good morning, everyone. Yes.
So we usually start by just finding out a little bit about our guest. So Neil, tell us a little bit about how you come to be what is your title? Waste?
My official title is Technical Support Officer Routing.
Okay, so you've got a very wide business card for all that one.
Yes. Well, if the council actually paid for such things, but no. Yes, my name's Neil. I've worked in the waste industry since 2002, ? Like most people, I fell into the industry. It's not my first choice of job. I was a mature student, and through the summer I needed money, so I signed up with an agency, and they stuck me on the bins.
Right. Literally on the bins?
Yeah. It was purely backed, and I'd driven a few transits for the agency before, for other companies, and they said, "Oh, do you fancy working for the council doing bins?" I went, "I'll do anything." Yeah. Signed up, and that's how I started, just as a normal agency person for the summer.
And that was the City Council here?
Yes.
Okay, so man and boy then?
Oh, well, I was in my mid-20s at that point. I was a mature student.
Yeah, okay.
Because I hated my job at the time. I worked in retail supermarkets.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was, not good. So I thought, right, I need to do something. So I went to university, and in the summer, worked for the bins. And never left.
No.
I did get my degree in IT, but I enjoyed doing the bins. It was a job you turned up, you did, you went home. There was no stress, very little hassle, occasional calamities. It happens to everyone. I mean, as you said, it's like something funny that happened to you. Well, not much really, apart from one sticks out. It was definitely a Thursday because it was in Garthdee. That was their day. And I ended up covered in what was technically cottage cheese. It was a nice summer's day. We were emptying the bins, and suddenly there was an explosion. And all this stuff come flying out the back of the lorry. It was obviously a milk bottle that had been sit in the sun, cooking and pressurising, and the blade just pierced it just correctly.
Right angle, right time. Yeah.
And it just spat cottage cheese. I was just looking down at myself going, oh my.
Yeah, great.
But I always had a change of clothes, because in case you get wet, so I always had a change of clothes, but it's like, oh dear.
That's the thing about the waste of being on the trucks, isn't it? You're either freezing cold in the winter, or in the summer, it's lovely and everything stinks.
Well, I preferred the spring and autumn, because it's just like Goldilocks, just right.
Yeah.
The summer in sunny Aberdeen,
even in Aberdeen,
is far too hot for emptying bins. We were task and finish at the time, so there was no hanging about. We were working in the sun, flat out. And I did the Victorian style street, so there was hundreds of bins in a street. Yeah. So we were hammering bins on at a fantastic rate. Oh, it did get hot.
Yeah, it's been a big thing recently with the 40 degrees summer we had 2 summers ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was in London in that heat.
Yeah, and we were getting sort of requests from clients to sort of put things on the software to sort of tell crews where they could get water top ups, and because they'd done made agreements with local shops that they could. Basically, the crews could just run in and get bottles of water, things, just because they couldn't keep them working in that heat. No. It just wasn't safe. I was sort of sitting out in my garden in 40 degrees thinking, this is awful. The idea that you'd be running around in a high-vis jacket, because you can't do it stripped to the waist. You've got to have your safety kit on. So I can imagine even now it's even worse.
It would have been. Now, I know this is a complete diversion, but we did something similar through a slightly tragic reason. We've put the locations that we know of defibrillators on the system. because one of our crew members collapsed and needed one.
Yeah.
He survived, thankfully. But no, so that's now on, so the crews can come out their work pack, sign in, and see where the nearest defibrillator is
that's a really
to
good
them
idea.
and stuff, so they can go and get the emergency kit if need be. Fingers crossed, nobody dies.
I'll be writing that down because that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Embed that
That's
in.
a really good idea.
Yeah, so, it was, I never thought of that, it was just circumstances that, and we thought, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
Just make it a feature and
Take
make
as
it
a solution for that. Yeah. That's really good.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think the other one we've had is public conveniences. So
We did that at the same
like
time,
that.
but I kind of thought the defibrillators might be a better example.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a bit more radio friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny you say you like working on the bins because it's a job you could just turn up and do and go home. And I do remember a bin man saying to me once, "Are we allowed to call them bin men anymore?" Yeah. A guy said to me once, "You've ruined this job." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, I used to come in, get my keys, bugger off for 6 hours, do my work, come home. Nobody asked me anything. Nobody told me anything. I just got on with it. And now I have to sort of follow the route. I have to record what's happened. I have to do a debrief. I'm a computer operator, and I just wanted to empty the bins." So it has moved on a little bit, hasn't it? Since then?
It certainly has, and again, slightly off course. It's one of the reasons why my old man gave up his HGV license. He'd been driving trucks since the 60s.
Yeah.
And he just gave it up. He's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Because far too much. He was used to the times where you could just do what you like as long as the job got done. Nobody asked.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So back when you were doing that in the 80s, that wouldn't have been wheeled bins, would it? Was that the old sort of
I
metal
never
bins?
did sacks collections, thankfully. I do remember I had a sack collection in my flat at the time in Aberdeen in the summer with the seagulls. Disaster. The best thing Aberdeen ever did was give me a communal bin on the street.
Yeah.
Because our street before was just festooned with litter in the summer. It was awful.
Yeah.
It must have been expensive because all the bin crews were followed by street sweepers.
Yeah, you're doing the job twice, aren't you?
Yeah, because obviously they're picking up what they can in the bin truck and the street sweepers are getting the rest. So it was very expensive to do. So that's why Aberdeen in 1999, I think it was, gave us a communal bin in our Victorian tenement flat.
Okay. So is that like a set of 1100s at the end of the street for recycling and refuse?
At the time, it was general waste only, and we got a pair of bins. It was on the street, so it took one of the parking spaces. Wow, game-changing difference to the quality of life in our street.
Yeah.
We had bins and across, so it was like staggered.
Yeah.
Because there was about 300 properties in our street, all Victorian tenemented granite flats. And what a difference it made to the environment.
Is that easier for them to collect as well? Because it's, apart from having to pick up all the crap off the floor, it's one or two stops on the street rather
Yes,
than...
it's definitely a lot easier because obviously they're tied to a spot, they're on the road, or if they're on the pavement, there's a drop curb. So the crews just have to wheel the bin literally 8 feet maximum. So it's much easier to do. It's quicker. You need less people than the old days because it used to be driver and 3 on the back.
Oh, is it? Right.
Yes. It's quicker. It's easier. And it's just better all round. Yeah. Absolutely.
And can you mix that in with the trade collections then? Because similar bin size, aren't they?
Yes, because it's similar to the composition. We can do trade waste at the same time.
I'm presuming you can get in early before the traffic, so you're not having to pick up lots of bins in the middle of the day.
Yeah, we always try and avoid certain areas, certain times. You get to know your beat and when and where to go and catch businesses open sometimes, because some of them don't open very early.
Yeah. I guess it depends whether the bins are accessible or not, doesn't it? Yeah. I guess Aberdeen's a bit... I mean, I drove up from Edinburgh via Perth yesterday, and as you sort of come out of Perth, there's nothing, and then suddenly you're in... You sort of see it on the horizon, the big city of Aberdeen. So it strikes me that you're not really like any of your immediate neighbouring councils, are you? You're sort of a city surrounded by
fields.
Rural... Yeah.
Aberdeen stops abruptly.
Yeah.
It's something I always noticed when I travel. is if you go to areas like Fife, you go to a place like Dunfermline, but then there's another town.
You gradually work into some of the big cities, don't you?
Yeah, because I used to go to Kirkcaldy a lot, and if you travel from Kirkcaldy to Edinburgh, you're always in somewhere, or just briefly. But here, it's very rural. Once you leave a town, city, that's it.
Yeah.
Are surrounded by another local authority, which is vastly bigger than us.
Yeah.
With the same population.
Yeah. So how does that work? Because I know you share your disposal facilities with Aberdeen Shire and with
Murray Council.
Yeah. So how does that work? So their collection was completely different to yours.
Yes, they bulk theirs up and transport it to the energy from waste plant.
Right. Okay.
Before the fire at Altons, we also did Highlands and the Shire's recycling as well.
All right.
But obviously,
that's coming a long way then, isn't it? From
if you think of where the Highlands are and where we are much closer than where they were putting it before.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Coming from Inverness down to here, it's 100 miles, which doesn't even get you to Perth.
No,
going the other way. It's close as far as the Highlands are concerned.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bit different to the London boroughs, isn't it, Louise?
A little bit different, yeah. And I'm not very familiar with Scotland, unfortunately. I've got a lot of customers in Scotland, but I haven't travelled much. Just in Glasgow.
Well, obviously Glasgow is the biggest city in Scotland, population and size. But I mean, when I do...
And Glasgow sprawls, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
You don't really leave Glasgow, it just peters out as you get into the other places.
It turns into Lanarkshire. There must be a border somewhere, but I've never found it.
No.
It must be like some of the boroughs in London, you're in...
You don't know where you are.
Right, you're just where you want to be.
Yeah.
We are isolated by our very nature.
Yeah.
And
so does the political boundary of the city actually match up with the physical stopping of the buildings? You've got some rural stuff, haven't you?
We do go much further out in some directions than you think before you hit the Shire Council. So we do have rural, what we call rural collections, but they're all done by a small vehicle. Not because the roads kind of take a bigger one, it's just the payload, basically. And rather than having to run a heap of different vehicles, we've got 26 tonners or 12.
Yeah.
Doing bins. We don't have 18s or narrow bodies, specialist ones. We've either got a standard one or the small one, because it can do what we need it to do.
Yeah. So how have you sort of adapted to the sort of changes in... I mean, Scotland's well ahead of England in terms of its environmental progress towards better recycling and separation. Must have had a few changes in Aberdeen as you've sort of adopted those things. Are you doing food? Are you doing food collections?
Yes, we do food and garden together in one bin.
Yeah.
Because our ultimate destination is industrial scale in-vessel composting.
Right.
So we mix them both together because that's what the plant needs. It needs fibre as well as the food to compost. So the facility likes what we give them with the domestic garden waste bins.
I always wonder, how does that work on the seasonality? Because if in the summer, in the bright sunshine of Aberdeen in the summer, you're going to get a lot more garden waste. The composition is going to be much more garden heavy.
Oh, definitely.
So how does the facility cope with that? Because they're dealing with a different composition throughout the year, aren't they?
They do quite, as far as I know, they do quite a bit of varied industrial inputs like wood dust and stuff like that as well, which is constant. So they've always got a source of fibre to do what they need to do, but they manage it. I know the locals complain about the plant sometimes.
Okay.
Because it is a very large plant.
Yeah.
So yes, it's smelly at times, but it means we can cut down our number of vehicles because we don't need a separate food waste collection.
But you have chargeable garden waste, don't you?
We do charge for the garden waste collection. But
so how does that work with the combined?
The bins have got a permit. We've got a company that, if you sign up online, pay your tax.
Yeah.
Shouldn't call it tax.
It's not a tax, it's a service charge.
Sorry.
Cut that bit.
They send you a sticker, and each year is a different colour, so the crews can clock. They didn't have to read the sticker, they just look at the colour. Right. So they've got this year's colour, so they get a collection of garden waste and food waste.
That sounds like a great idea for a business, doesn't it, Louise?
It does, and luckily Permaserve does supply Aberdeen City their permits.
Yeah. Yes.
It was more the combined food and garden I was interested in, because how does that work with regards you're not allowed to charge for food, but you are allowed to charge for garden waste? Is that different in Scotland than it is in England?
Well, it's just the way the Scottish government's set it out. Garden waste is not mandatory in the...
It's not mandatory anywhere, is it?
No. So
well, not yet, anyway.
Neighbouring authority, the Shire Council, they don't do garden waste at all. They do food waste, but they don't do garden waste.
Yeah.
But
so if you've got a commingled food and garden, and I don't pay for garden, I can still put food in. Same container.
Same container, same collection, same crews. They they change over time, which is August. We deliberately picked August to keep away from the start of the financial year.
Yeah.
Because there was so much going on in council finances at that time. And so we chose August with the start of our year. So from then, the crews notice anyone with an old sticker or no sticker, they give the bin a quick look, and if there is garden waste in it, they don't uplift it, and they put a tag on it and say, no. And you can either pay up or take it out.
Take it out, It's just not a very appealing prospect.
No, it's not. Which is an incentive, let's say. But it works really well, because the crews do use the in-cab system to record it very well, because they know it works in their favour. Yes. So they buy into it very easily.
Yeah. So the change we've got coming up in England is basically going to effectively make it quite difficult for commingled collection to continue, because those that are doing commingled collections where it's food and garden together, under the 2026 Simply Recycling, they're going to have to provide a weekly free food collection. So if they continue with the commingling, then basically they've got to do the garden weekly and free. They won't be able to charge for it. And I think the only thing in favour of that is that you don't need extra vehicles. I know some authorities are saying, well, we just don't have room for the additional food vehicles, so we're going to have to carry on commingling, but we're going to lose the revenue. So that's...
Well, I can sympathise with that, because obviously we run an O licence.
Yep.
And we've only got so many vehicles we can put in
so much space to park with them things, yeah.
So anything that increases the number of vehicles on the road, personally, I think really needs looked at. Because we've got a fully commingled stream. So we've got residual, commingled recycling, dry recycling, so it's everything including glass, and commingled garden and food. So we've got 3 waste streams. That's all we collect. We've got 3 waste streams. So bang, bang, bang. So we don't have another vehicle following for food waste or cardboard. So our fleet is as small as it can be to keep our footprint, like physical footprint and fuel bills and all that kind of stuff, as low as it can be.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns with food waste in England is that we're going to roll out food waste for everybody, and there's going to be a lot of driving around picking up nothing. And actually, if it's commingled with the garden, then you still, it's much more efficient. Even if the food waste service is not popular, you're still picking up the same number on the table.
But surely then you're only collecting those who have a garden waste bin.
Well, yes,
so the percentage of people that have those is the 45%?
We're quite a bit higher than that for participation.
Right.
Can't remember the exact figures, but in the first year, it was like 90% of the potentials did. It was really high.
Yeah.
I mean, it did tail off a bit to mid-80s, but still really, really high participation
that's
on the garden waste side.
Yeah, you always got to look at what people are measuring percentages of as well, because I've got a certain percentage of people signing up for garden waste, but you've got to look at whether that's a percentage of the total number of premises they've got, the total number of premises that actually could have a garden bin, or the total number that do have a garden bin presented. So I look at percentages and sometimes think, what is that percentage of?
We did it simply because I produced a figure.
Yeah.
It was, pull a number out there, a round figure, 76,000 potentials. We sold down here 69,000 things. So, it's really, really close to 90%.
Yeah.
So it was really, I mean, it did bring in a lot of revenue for the council.
Yeah,
Yeah, the average sign-up rate has gone up. It used to be about 35% before COVID, and now it is definitely going up to more 50, 60% as an average across the UK.
Yes, yeah,
It's just what happens to that 40%
pre-COVID,
that don't have garden
we
waste bin,
managed
food waste.
49.9.
I can see that irks you.
It did. I would have moved heaven and earth to find a few tons that I could class as recycling to push us over to 50, but no, it wasn't me doing the figure. So we reported 49.9.
Yeah.
But since COVID, we've fallen back.
Okay.
Yeah. We were on a trajectory to get into the mid-50s, but since COVID, our figures have been bad.
Is that just people
Why is
going
that,
back to
then?
work and not staying at home doing their gardens?
I'm not sure. I mean, personally, I work from home now.
Yeah.
So I'm home a lot more than I was. So things like lunch is at home.
Yeah.
So I buy more stuff to put that ends up in the bin at home and
Yeah.
not at work. You know, so where the waste is put, I mean, it might be the same
amount, yeah.
but where it's put and how it's collected might be different.
Yeah.
So yeah, since COVID, we've noticed a definite change in what's going on with the waste. You can just see it in the plain figures.
Yeah. So that brings me on a little bit to we've spent a lot of time looking at curbside collections because they're kind of the easy and people like Communal's too difficult. You know, hard to reach people, transient, lots of contamination. You know, all the sort of reasons or excuses for not really tackling that stream. But I know you've done some work on your communal properties. We
have. Aberdeen's roughly 40% communal.
Yeah, that surprised me. That's high, isn't it? That's
it is
a lot.
quite high. Of about 125,000 households, 40% of them are communal. Because if you look at the city centre, like the street I was on, built in the 1880s, Victorian granite, tenemental, high density flats built for workers at the time. So it was very early housing. I think my flat was 1877, but never mind. So there's a lot of that type of building in the city, especially in the centre of the city, the old parts of Aberdeen.
Yeah.
We had to find a solution. So most of them are served by on-street communal bins now. So in the late 90s, they were all rolled out as general waste because at the time, that's all we did really. We had a once a week paper collection. Right. People used to put bags of paper out on a Wednesday.
Okay, yeah.
Because it used to be, the bins were done Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday was the pickup routes for the bags. So they had nothing to do on a Wednesday. So they thought, well, we'll pick up paper then. So that was still being done when I started the paper. It was the only recycling we did was just paper. But as we moved through the early noughties, we started with the garden waste. We did kerbside collection. So as you see, we did all the easy stuff with the households because you can send a letter to them, send something to their house. It's easy.
Put a sticker on their bin.
Contaminated, it's you. But we did come to a point where we'd done the households. I mean, we've squeezed them as much as we could. They were performing well, but 40% did not get the service that they deserved. So our senior manager at the time came up with a bold idea, I suppose, that he wanted to make recycling easier than throwing it in the bin. That was its grand idea.
Well, that's the bottom line. If you don't make it easy, it won't happen. You're pushing a rock uphill otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. So we started by putting paper bins out because, again, it's all we could dispose of was paper. So we started replacing some of the bins for general waste with paper around the city, and it was reasonably successful. It gathered quite a lot of tonnage, but it still was a substandard service compared to what the householders were getting. So part of that was disposal, because where we are, it's 60 miles to Dundee, the next city. So it's an hour by car to the next city.
Yeah.
And that's if you're whoosh, going for it.
Yeah, it's more than an hour in a bin truck, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So anything that we truck has to be worthwhile trucking a long distance. So we decided that we would want our own facility, MRF, in Aberdeen, again, to cut down miles travelled and all that kind of stuff. And to have control, because we were sending stuff to paper mills in the Central Belt, which to us is Glasgow, Edinburgh, the Forth Clyde Valley.
Yeah.
Okay. Geez, London, that's at far north, but for us, that's south. That's 2.5 hours south for me. So we were getting a high level of rejects from some of these mills, which obviously they take the easy route, just get rid of it, So we thought, right, what can we do? So we ended up building our own MRF here with brand new kit, top of the range kit. It could sort out glass, plastic, paper, cans, everything, and it would be run on our behalf. And it opened, and because we knew that was coming, we set out to give every person that had a communal bin in the city, if there was a general waste bin, there was going to be a recycling bin next to it and a food waste bin. And if we could manage it, we would, and we're still doing this now, what we're doing for the low-rise flats is we're shutting the internal chutes, and we're moving the general waste outside. We tried to put food waste quite close to the front doors of these low-rise developments. So they went in first. Then we put out the recycling bins, which were fairly close, but not quite the same, because the food waste is a small thing. You can get that quite close to the front door. But then we closed the chutes. So now we've got food waste close to a door, recycling quite close to it, and now the general waste is further away still.
Okay.
So the visual hierarchy that people are seeing is they're getting food, recycling, then general. So to put a black bag of rubbish in, they've got to walk past 2 recycling bins, generally.
So this is kind of like the level of the supermarket merchandise, isn't it? Where you sort of see the cakes, when you're next to the till, and they hide the milk that you need at the back. This is clever stuff.
It's not a deep think. It's purely circumstances. That's what's happened in a lot of cases. Just the way we rolled it out. So now the communals get what I think is a super service, because they've got their food waste, their mixed recycling close, and their general waste. So they've got the same mix of materials that they can recycle as the households, and it is, in general, very successful. It's not quite up to the wheelie bin standard for contamination and participation, but from where we started, it's a lot better. And it's something that you can monitor.
Yeah, I was going to ask how you're tracking that participation, because it's difficult to measure participation when you've got one bin serving lots and lots of people, isn't it? Yeah.
What we have done and what we are doing is putting out RFID tags in the bins. So we are monitoring, because the crews self-monitor, if you know what I mean. They don't do work that doesn't need doing.
Yeah.
So if a bin is not being used, they will leave it alone until it does need emptied, which we don't mind. In fact, we want them to do that. So we can target the ones that, through the data that we're gathering, it's not emptied enough. So either they've got too much capacity, fill it up, or too little use. Mostly too little use. So what we're going to try and do is find isolated kind of physical areas that we can tie usage down to 1 or 2 blocks and run campaigns in an area, send out letters, knock doors, radio, online, all kinds of stuff to try and see the before and after. Because obviously with the flatted blocks, Aberdeen's got a large population of students. There's 2 universities in a small city. So there is transient students. There still is the oil industry. So there's lots of people that come up, work 5-6 months in Aberdeen and go away again. So there is a high turnover of people in the tenement blocks. So it's not something you can just do once. If it works, it's probably going to be done again and again and again, just to keep hammering the message into the people in tenements. Because, as I say, it is successful. It's a good service that they get. Because I go to other cities and I can't help looking at bins. You can't help
it's
it.
It's a curse of the game.
You know, it's like, what kind of trucks do they use? Oh, they've got Dennis's, and oh, look, they've got different back ends to us. What are they doing?
Yeah.
Can't help myself. I have to look.
I'm driving down the motorway and my wife will say, why have you suddenly slowed down? And then she'll say, it's a bin truck, isn't it? Oh, yeah, I'm just slowing down to look at the back of that bin truck.
I do that with bins.
Cannot help it.
Garden waste bins and
after a bin
labels.
truck for many years, you do notice the differences. Yeah. I do miss my old one, my first one. It was the best, I think. It was simple, no electronics, entirely hydraulic, but it was a high-level lifter, and we had the chairs set to a fraction below the comb for wheelie bins. So as soon as you were activating them, they were away.
Yeah.
So if you didn't do what it was doing correctly, your bins were gone. But once you got into it, you could hammer bins on our old truck much quicker than new ones. Yeah, so it was, again, job and finish. So we had it just finely tuned to be boom, away.
Yeah. When did you go off job and finish?
Oh, mid-noughties.
Oh, yeah, been a little while then.
Yeah, it's been a while. Once it started, we did have an accident that involved a fatality of a pedestrian. So that was caused, job and finish was not the cause of...
It's a culture though, isn't it?
Yes.
It pervades everything.
Yeah, so the senior management did not want to go through that again, so they started cracking down on the crews. But the behaviour change in crews takes a long time.
It's generational, isn't it?
It basically is, because the drivers I started with were all of a time where there were sack collections and the old trucks. They're all gone now.
Yeah.
You know, and we've got newer, younger drivers in who are more used to digicards and the digital tachographs and this and that and filling in tablets, and it's all very...
They don't remember the good old days because they weren't there.
Just get in and drive, you know. It's a changed industry, and it's, as far as I know, it's just going to get more and more electronic for duty of care and waste transfer notes. And then the regulations coming in look frightening.
Yeah.
We're going to need support as a council because with some of these regulations coming in, because we have not got the capability of doing the software and systems to support some of these, which are good ideas, but technologically are challenging for a council that, and our budget is tight. You know, we've got limited amounts to spend on things that are new and new regulations, and waste is at the bottom of the pile, let's say. You know, social work, education is much more in focus in the budget. If there's going to be, we've got 100,000 to give to somebody, we don't get it.
No, it's going to go to social care.
Yeah, social care, education,
social care
they get it, you know, which I've got kids in school.
You can't argue with it, can you?
No, until they're right, then I will. But
at
the moment, both my kids are getting to the end point of their education, let's say. So, it's, anything that we can get cheaply from a software vendor so they can expand.
I feel like you're negotiating with me already.
I was going to say, this is...
Because obviously you won't be the only ones needing it.
No, absolutely not.
It's not a thing that just for us. It's
a problem that 300 odd councils have got.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not.
And every council's got the same story. They've all got to adapt, and they've got no money.
Yeah,
it is. But I've got to say, and I've got to hold my hand up and say, Aberdeen's been pretty good at finding the will to, build an MRF.
Yeah.
Build an incinerator. We started, I think the grand plan that our senior manager Pete came up with at the time, that was in the late noughties. We started speaking about that.
Yeah.
And the incinerator came online last year.
Yeah. That's actually pretty quick in the grand scheme of it. Yeah, to do things in a decade, to build big infrastructure like that.
Plan like that. Yeah, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
We've been, and some of the other councils were like, oh, we kind of cope with this landfill ban. It's like, well, hello. I mean,
it didn't sneak up on you, did it?
No, it didn't.
No.
You just put it off. You didn't bite the bullet, and I mean, so yeah, blow our own trumpet a bit. We are pretty good at adopting technology pretty quick. Like we've adapted to POPs really quite quickly as well.
And that one did come out of nowhere.
It did. It was just like, oh my. It was like mad panic. Where do we get vehicles? And it's and people, when you say to people, we have to do this, they look at you like it's just a city. What are you speaking about?
Yeah.
Why is it costing so much?
Yeah.
It's like, but it's us that's it's not. I mean, we're just passing on the cost that we've had to bear to separate out persistently organic pollutants. Is that something like that?
It's not organic pollutants. Yeah. Stuff that won't disappear.
Yeah, exactly. And thank Crunchy that we've got an incinerator now, because that's where it's going to go.
That's where it goes. Yeah.
It's fortuitous. Again, no grand think.
No.
But things have just fallen, ducks in a row, and just boom, we got our energy from waste, because that's what it is. It is an energy from waste plant, because they're digging up one of the districts in Aberdeen, quite close to the plant just now, for district heating.
Right. Okay.
So all the tower blocks and mid-rise blocks, as far as I know, are getting hot water heating from the plant.
Will other authorities use your plants?
Three.
So you'll be able to get money?
There's three authorities, us, the Shire and Murray, which is basically all of the old Grampian region.
It's the top right bit of Scotland, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you look at the northeast of Scotland, draw a square, really, and that's the three councils there.
Is there opportunity for others, or is it just a sheer distance?
We are pretty close to capacity with the council's waste.
Yeah.
But if projections are true and we can get people to recycle more, because when I started, we collected more waste from a smaller city.
Yeah.
We collect less waste now from a city that's got about 20,000 more households in it than when I started. Okay. But there's less waste overall generated. Okay. So people have changed what they do and how they do it. Because obviously, reduce is the best. Recycling's the last
That's
thing
the worst. It's second worst, isn't it? You want to reduce first. So Aberdeen as a city produces less waste now than it did in the 90s. I mean, the general trend in consumption is not in that way, is it?
No,
we're using more and more and more. We ship stuff in from China and then throw it in an incinerator, and we do very little with it in the middle.
Did I just read a thing in The Guardian about plastic recycling? I think it was out today or recently. It's people need convinced that what they're doing is correct for them and the environment and for cost, you know. And I think we've got a good balance. Some of the regulations, in my personal opinion, I can see why they want to do it, but from a economic, just looking at the pure numbers, it's like, well, that's never going to work. No matter how much you want to do it, that's just, what do you do with this stuff when you've collected it? I mean, literally, what do you do with it?
Yeah.
Burn it. Get some heat. Get some electricity out of it.
Yeah, that's all you can do with it.
That's what we're doing with a lot of these stuff. And personally, where we are in a small island, we're an isolated city in a small island. It's probably, people are arguing with me, but I think doing what we're doing is better overall, personally. I think it's just better to have less big trucks trundling up and down the A90 all the time.
And certainly in an urban city environment, big trucks are they're not good to have on the street. I was reading something about the other day about Japan and how they, in the city of Tokyo is actually pretty quiet as a city, and their cement trucks, all their commercial vehicles, they're much smaller, because rather than making the big trucks for efficiency and then cramming them into a really tiny street that doesn't fit. They don't do that. They live with what they've got, and so we need small cement trucks, which is going to be more expensive than big ones. But the quality of life and the quality of Tokyo as a city. So I think running lots and lots of 26 and 32 tonners through the city centre is not great. You can reduce the number of vehicles, make them smaller. Then that's in an imperceptible way. It's much better for the city as a whole, not to have those trucks driving in and out. So as the oil industry is kind of winding down or has wound down, it's not like it was in the 80s. So is Aberdeen still growing as a city? I mean, place we go, there's lots and lots of house building going on. Is that the case in Aberdeen?
There is. It has. It's something, because I do the route planning, it's something I've got a finger on, let's say, because I've got to put on the new properties and plan out the routes for any big changes. So we are expanding. I think when I started, we had about 107,000 households. I think we're up to about 124, high 124s now. Yeah. So that's just 20 years. So it is going up.
Yeah.
It's not quite as fast as it was in the late noughties. But it's cyclical. I mean, my old man was made redundant about 5 times through the oil industry as it went up and down from the 70s through the 80s and the 90s. He was made redundant so many times.
Right.
His companies collapsed, went bankrupt and changed, and because he was on the drilling exploration side. Right. So as soon as the price of oil went down, they were all made redundant.
Yeah.
So it's like, cheap food for us. So it is cyclical. We are obviously just now in a environment, if you pardon the pun, where it's frowned upon to drill for new oil.
Yeah.
And I can understand why. But again, I still think it's better to, if we're going to use oil, get it from close.
Yeah.
Rather than ship it in from the Far East or wherever it comes in, America, what I mean?
And the political, we're beholden to them politically for that. Yes, I can see the arguments for it, but yes, it'd be better if it was all just left in the ground.
Yes, but if we're going to use it, use our own.
Right.
Because we may as well employ our own people rather than employ whoever abroad to do the work. And our regulations are a hell of a lot better than some of the. I mean, I have got friends that work in Nigerian oil fields and stuff, and wow, yeah. No.
Don't have the regulatory framework that we've got.
Well, there is, but it's easy to bypass with a few handy hints.
Yes.
Yeah. So having it controlled yourself, I think it's a better idea to have than use somebody else's. It's possibly same quality, but as I say, shipped in from another place.
Yeah. So, what do you see as the future then for Aberdeen? What's going to change in the West coming up? I mean, we've got lots going on in England, but Scotland, I think, has kind of been ahead of the curve and done quite a lot of it.
There's a tension in Scotland, even within the UK. Scotland wants to be at the forefront, but at the same time, you can't go too far in front with too much, because you've got to keep businesses happy at the same time as you flag up, aren't we good? I mean, at the end of the day, if nobody's got a job, it doesn't matter how much you say that, aren't we good?
Yeah.
You're not.
No.
As a society, we need ethically sustainable businesses to thrive in Scotland. So it's a difficult square to circle. I know I said that the wrong way around, but
either way works.
It made sense to me.
We've come up with a grand plan for the future. We want the green, we want low carbon industry and that, but this transition period just now is going to be hard. As we transition from one to another. It's like, obviously I'm a child of the 70s, and we were fishing and farming, and that was it, where I came from.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it. If you didn't do farming, you're either on a boat or processing fish. That was it.
Were you born and grew up in Aberdeen?
No, I'm from even further north,
Yeah.
Fraserburgh, that area.
So you came when your dad was in the oil industry, presumably.
I only moved into Aberdeen when I went to university.
All right.
Yeah, I was schooled in Fraserburgh Academy for my sins. So yeah, it was, again, you think Aberdeen's rural. When we got to Aberdeen, we still had an hour and a half to drive to get home.
Aberdeen was the big city when you
Yes.
Yeah.
Dundee was 2.5 hours away for us when we were kids.
Okay.
So Dundee was south,
as
far as I was concerned. Big south. So yeah.
It's so funny how everyone's reference points are so different, because we're obviously really south. Brighton is
you fall
south.
off the island if
we
you go
fall
past
off the
Brighton.
country.
Yeah. So think if you're in Brighton, drive 2.5 hours somewhere without stopping. That was how far away Dundee was from us.
That sometimes can be Dartford, and that's only should be an hour away.
Yes.
But yes.
And when you get there, you're in Dundee. I mean, it's not like you've got to Las Vegas, is it? It's Dundee.
No, it's Dundee. So it's still an hour and a bit to Edinburgh, stroke Glasgow.
Yeah.
So, yes,
everything's just so far away, isn't it?
It is. Everything's far away from where we are. So once you're here, you tend to stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very... I mean, obviously, you probably hear that I have a slight accent.
I've not noticed it.
Yeah, a slight.
It's not as broad as my Aberdeen friends.
No, I have lost, and I'm trying not to speak. Like, I phoned my old man up last night, and he's a farmer from the rural Scotland. So my grandparents spoke proper Doric, which was mostly English, but 20% of what they said was not English.
Yeah.
And so even from my grandparents to now, the assimilation of standard English has been a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'm from Barnsley, and we have the same. I mean, I talk to my in-laws, and the generation older than me, and it's a dialect, it's an accent, it's very different. I talk posh for Barnsley, I suppose.
Yes.
But my kids are probably a bit more Barnsley than I am. But I think you've got that this whole sort of doing everything on Zoom and social media. It is normalising those accents to make them more similar.
It does. I mean, even telling the time's different.
Yeah.
If you'd said to my grandparents, "I'll see you at 2:30," you better be there at 1:30.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the half hour was the one, not what we do.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was all very different, and the digital age has changed a lot, definitely for us, and even basics like the ethnic mix in the northeast of Scotland is. I mean, I grew up. I never actually spoke to a black person until I was 15.
No. Well, similar.
There was. We had a school of, say, 1,500 pupils.
Yeah.
The 2 were black and 1 was Chinese.
Yeah.
Or Asian.
Yeah.
So the chances that I never had the opportunity to speak to them.
No.
Because they were in a different house from us. It was so the
world has changed a lot.
A lot.
Yeah. I mean, just talking about something else, you've got your scanner there. You know who's emptied what bin, which would be unthinkable to Neil in the 80s.
Absolutely.
Following a bin truck down the street and throwing them in.
It's.
I was going to ask actually about the RFID. How do you find that, and what do you use it for?
We are still in the implementation phase, I would suggest. We've got most of them out. We've got the trucks fitted. We're getting data through into our system. Fine, it all works. What we're coping with now is bins that were never tagged and bins that we've since found tagged incorrectly.
It's the hardest bit, physically visiting every bin and tagging it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so that's mostly done. I was out yesterday in the sunshine, I will say, yesterday, not today, and I was showing our crews how to use our supplied units to tag new bins, check, and tag bins that are missed and all that kind of stuff. So I spent the whole yesterday almost out with the crews doing this. The software we got to do this is 90% good, so it's perfectly usable. It could be with polishing slightly.
He's negotiating again.
It's entirely functional, and so the crews can go up, they can delete things that are wrong, rescan them, and add in the right details now. So we're getting the process and the work habits. What do I do when? Those kind of scenarios we're speaking about. So we've agreed that the domestic bins, they can just change. So if they turn up and there's 4 bins physically, but we've got 5, they can delete the extra one.
Yeah.
But, pardon me, for trade collections, they're not allowed to do that.
No.
Obviously, there's a contract.
Paid for it, yeah.
So what we've come up with is a property event. So they'll just enter a bin tagging event, put in a little, could they find a 1280? Or they've got more bins on site than what they're paying for, question mark.
And that triggers an audit.
That triggers, as you say, an audit of the site. So either they get cheaper or we get more income because we're actually getting paid for what we're doing.
So how accurate do you think your bin register in the communals was? I think that was an early discussion we had, where you didn't know necessarily exactly what you got. You didn't know where it was or what condition it was in.
Yeah, it depends what you mean by accurate. If you go for a broad definition, I would say about 90 to 95% was accurate. Specifically, if you're going, do they have a 940 bin emptied twice a week? You're dropping it down to 70% because a lot of the sizes are wrong.
Okay.
But the waste collection and the frequency is correct. So the service is right, the frequency is right, the truck's right. It just so happens that the bin is a slightly different size from what we think. Not the end of the world.
No.
I mean, we'd like to correct it, but you've got to fight your battles. We would much rather have everything tagged and registered, even though we know some of them are wrong sizes. But that's a problem for future us.
Are you getting any weight information about what's in those bins?
No.
Are you getting anything from the disposal?
From the disposal points, yes.
Yeah.
So we can marry up, like the truck emptied this to get that and work backwards, yes. But we did not put load cells on the trucks. No. I mean, would I like to? As an experiment, yes. But for every truck,
expensive.
And
you got it on. I think you got the RFID tag on. Is it 21 vehicles? So it's a hell of a cost to
installation.
15-20 grand for wet load cells on a vehicle times 21 is
that's a lot.
Yeah, so it's a lot of social caking by with that. Yeah,
you need a business case and a half to justify that. You'd really need to go for the full pay by weight solution and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and
no politician's going to touch that.
No. I mean, because obviously we work in a political environment, although it's just waste. We touch every household in the city.
Yeah.
So
every couple of weeks.
Every week.
Every week in most cases.
We run all weekly, so 1 week's recycling, 1 week's general waste, and it flips back and forth. So every day of the week we're at households collecting stuff. And a lot of people think we're the only thing they get from the council. It's
the most visible thing, isn't it?
It is, because
particularly if you're not a user of social care and or education. If you're just an average Joe who's got a house and a bin, that is the only thing you think the council's doing when you forget about the fact that you're driving on the road and that there's a street light there, and you forget about all that stuff because the bit that you actually interact with is that plastic bin.
And as an aside, I don't know if it's the same with English news, but in Scottish news, if what they're saying is good news about councils, they'll show teachers.
Yeah.
But if they've got any kind of negative budget increases, anything like that, they'll show bin men.
Yeah.
Almost always. You can just tell what the story is going to be, because if it's a council and it's got bin men, you know it's going to be bad news. Council tax going up or something like that.
Yeah.
But if you can see teachers or children or something in the background, it's going to be
and personal.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the council. So it's a perception thing.
Yeah.
We per house per year don't cost much. I mean, I think people would be shocked if they realise just how little we get paid Out of that pie that they gave the council for the council tax.
My number's out of date, but I think it varies between like sort of 30 and 90 quid in an English council. Out of sort of 1,500 quid a year council tax. People think it's
a huge chunk. It's not.
Yeah, and I say to people, ring up Biffa and ask them what they'll charge you to come empty your bin every 2 weeks.
It's a lot.
And then you want it 3 times, so you've got 3 bins you want empty. Yeah. Ask Biffa what they're going to charge you. And it's not 30 quid a year.
No, it certainly is not. We are, although it costs a lot of money to run the service, overall, when you consider, because the numbers are big, we don't deal with little data sets.
No.
Everything we do is hundreds of thousands. It's millions of collections a year. So if we miss 2,000 bins in a year, sounds like a lot. 2,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we did 8 million collections. So 2,000 divided by 8 million, it's like a number that's, it's like, what? How many zeros?
Yeah.
Yeah. We generally run a pretty good ship.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. I mean, the time that we wrote a car off that was 2 weeks old, not perfect.
But you didn't hit it because it was 2 weeks old. It just happened to be 2 weeks old. Yeah.
So exactly, it's things happen, but most of the time, it's an excellent service we do.
Yeah,
and we should be entirely invisible. Basically, that's what we want to be.
Yeah.
We don't want to be noticed, because if we're noticed, something's going wrong.
Yeah.
Something's happened. The bin's too full. We want to be it just happens.
Yeah.
People put their bin out, it gets emptied, they put the bin back, that's it.
But paradoxically, we also want people to appreciate it and actually understand that, the grey bin's the worst bit, the recycling bin is slightly better but still bad. Not using the waste service at all is even better.
Yeah.
So actually, we're trying to educate people, but the bit that actually needs to be just like a clock that you don't hear, it just happens. But we do want people to understand what's going on a bit more than they currently do.
We do, and it's not my bailiwick, let's say. I'm an operations kind of person. I like the tech. I love the tech.
Yeah.
I like using it, like helping develop it and all that kind of stuff. I like tech. Some of it hasn't worked. We had bin sensors on 5 bins, with these ultrasonic bin sensors.
Yeah.
Oh, they're bad. We've had umpteen salesmen try to sell us a system that, this is going to be brilliant. So we thought, we'll give it a bash.
Yeah.
No. The amount of false readings, the fact that they don't know where they are. So if the crews move the bins, they don't know that they moved.
There's not the GPS in them.
No.
And if you put GPS in them, the battery doesn't last as long.
It's a good idea in principle, but because we looked and people had put a whole cardboard box in the bin and it was full.
If you put a box across the top, ultrasonic it's full, or a bag that blows up.
It's like. So there is
those things will work because the technology is improving. We're not selling them yet but I was in the council yesterday. They've got 11,000 of them.
Ouch.
Yeah.
See, what we struggle with is change. Is describing a lot of cases like with the wheelie bins. It's a little bit of a problem because some streets put their bins at the back, or they've got a rear lane, so it comes out around the corner, but you can cope with that, maybe. Yeah. But with the communals, if you've got 10 vehicles and you give people a random route to do every day, it's like the prime example was in our depot. You could look out our depot window at Kitty Brewster, and I would try and say, look, out there's 2 bulk bins. And they say, there's one there. There's another one. Couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it. You drive past it. If you didn't know exactly where it was, you'd never find it.
Yeah.
So the crews need either to be given the intelligence, which we don't have to give them, or they need to know themselves. So the crews need to know their area to get the bin. So the sensor can say, this bin's full, give it to crew 1. But if crew 1's never done it before, then they're not going to find it, or they're going to spend 10 minutes
trying to find it. Yeah.
And you just ruined any efficiency that you were going to gain by using these sensors. So it's either you go full tilt into it and have amazing information to give the crews to support them in this endeavour, which I would suggest nobody's got yet. It might come, but not yet. Or you use RFIDs to try and refine, you go hybrid until the technology, because I don't know about other councils, but you don't want to be on the bleeding edge of anything. You know, it might be, you can say, oh, we've got this, we've done this, but I'd much rather use a technology that's 5 years old and somebody else has done the hard work on and pick it up.
Yeah, when we, in the early days of the the software that you've now got, I'm talking 2005, we made 2 initial sales into borough councils, and very enthusiastic guys who got on and ran with it, and we thought, brilliant, we can do this now. There's 400 councils, we've got it made. And I think it was about another year before we sold another one, because particularly in local authorities, it's a fairly risk-averse environment. It wasn't quite so bad in the early noughties, but there isn't money sloshing around to have a go at things. So, you find a couple of those councils that really want to have a go at things, and you think you've got it made, and actually the rest of them don't want to know until they can see it's been there for years, and there's 10 other people. So actually there's a book called Crossing the Chasm, which is all about, you think you've got it made with these 2 here, but you've somehow got to get across this big gap. And we fell in that gap for a year, just driving up and down to doing this demo. Isn't it great? Yeah, it's brilliant. We don't want to buy it. No. That was basically every sales which I did for about a year.
Tough ask.
Yeah. But you've just got to identify what it is. And it's the same with trying to get people to recycle. There's 10% of people go, that's brilliant, I love this, I want a food caddy, I really want to do it. Vast majority of people really, really don't want to do it. Same with getting putting in-cab into your trucks. You've got 50 odd trucks, and there's probably 3 drivers who think, this is a great toy, I want to have a go with this. So the rest of them are like, that's never going to work. And it's a hell of a job to get from that small number to convince the rest of them.
It is, and I was surprised at the yeas and nays we got when we got Bartek 2016 in the cabs. A couple of the old drivers surprised me.
Yeah,
one in particular, big guy, 6'4", quite close to retirement, and he could lift sofas. Just like I thought, he's never going to cope with this.
Yeah,
but no, he was like, poof, right in about. Not the fastest, but he was there. He was not doing the moaning. He was poof. He was away. And some of the younger ones are like, ooh, no, but we thankfully changed our policies at the same time as the in-cabs went in to make them more flexible, so we could sell the in-cab to the crews. If you do this, this will happen, and that'll benefit you.
That's the key.
What's in it for me? Like our missed bin policy. When I was a binman, you knew the bins that came out every week, because we did the same beat, week in, week out. And if a bin wasn't out, you could drive, and especially if a car was in the drive, you think, we're going to get called back. And lo and behold, half an hour later, you need to go back, you've missed a bin. No, we didn't.
No.
We didn't.
No.
You have to go back. You missed it.
Yeah. And crews are not going to record the bins not out if you make them go back anyway. Yeah. You've got to back the crews. Yeah, so if you're going to say, record this info.
That was before. So we changed it to say, look, we know the time the street's finished. We know the time the crew said your bin was not out. So if you phone in after those times, I'm sorry, you've not got a missed bin. You've got a bin that's full that you want emptied, which is different.
Yeah.
So the crews did realise, and we did work with them, that if they do their not outs, we will back them up.
Yeah.
We have got a slight caveat. We give everyone a please, 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 just this once.
Yeah.
But it's in a rolling 12-month thing. So they do get, okay, we'll go back this time. But
not
next time it's just like, nope.
No.
So our missed bin figures came down a lot when we introduced the in-cab system to reflect more the performance of the crews. Because obviously, when we do big changes, and as we spoke about, different crews to different areas, the mist bins go up again because they need to find the subtleties, all their new beats and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, a mist bin now is a genuine mist bin, or the crew have forgot to do their not out and they've hung themselves with their old petards. So go and do it.
They'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So and it is easy to do, and that's the best thing about our in-cab solution. It's the easiness of the in-cab terminal. I use a back office bit mostly, which is fine, it does its job, but the ease that the crew can put in things like, there's 3 houses, bump, 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 not out.
Yeah.
It's just click, 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 bang. It's not a search and pick from this menu and swipe there, and it's not a complicated process.
It has to be easy to use.
It has to be easy to use and quick for them to do on the go.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will not get the buy-in. And we have.
Aren't we just having the same conversation about crews that we're having about householders? If you make it easy and there's something in it for them, they'll do it. Yeah. Otherwise,
they'll just keep doing what they keep doing. Yeah. It's like they're pushing a stone up a hill.
Yeah.
Eventually, you'll get to a place where it's easier. You just need to keep focused on what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing about the in-cab was filling it with data. Because we had, obviously, an Excel-based system before, which worked. But it's in no way could you feed this data into a machine and get routes out into an in-cab system. It was a lot of work to get our data into a state where we could use it.
But it is a data-driven business now, isn't it?
It is. I came into the office, obviously I was a bin man, I was chasing trucks, but then they realised I could drive a computer. So they pulled me off and stuck me in an office and said, help us. So I started working as a loader in the office. Then a job came up and I got promoted. But the data I acquired, it's like the Excel sheet was all bins 2000. So it started in the year 2000. So if you can keep a spreadsheet coordinated for, I think we got rid of that in 2016, 16 years worth of information on one Excel sheet. It's rubbish, basically. And that was just the domestic stuff. We had another spreadsheet for the trade one. And because we had a client contractor thing in the 90s, we had 2 data sets, one for the client and one for the contractor, and they were not the same.
No.
And I inherited 2 databases, one for recycling and one for garden waste. And neither of them had UPRNs.
Okay.
Neither had standard addresses in them. They were all free typed.
Okay.
Each had about 80,000 lines in it.
Yeah.
And I had to give each line a UPRN.
Wow. Yeah.
Without any kind of standard. So I had to write a whole heap of code to do the easy work, to then fish out a couple of thousand that was just like you had to put eyes on and say, what is that?
Yeah.
You know? So it took a lot of time for that. Then our paper records were just like, do Broomhill Road from this street to that street. They're 60 bits. The road's a mile long.
Yeah.
There's businesses that we do. There's businesses that we don't. There's communal collections that crew sometimes do and sometimes don't. Obviously, I've used software for a long time. I mean, I started using computers before mice was a thing. So I like keyboards, tabs, and that kind of style system. And it was like F4 for that menu, number 3 bump, 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 type in the data. So once you knew a system, you could actually not look at the screen. You could just hammer the information into the, because first computer system I used for work was green screen.
Yeah.
Monochrome monitor. So where was I going? Yeah, technology. It's improved a lot since then. And obviously Bartek is a system. When was it started?
2005.
2005. Because it seems to me, as a user, it was designed for weekly wheelie bin collections.
It was, yeah.
And
originally, the in-cab.
And that's how it was designed. That's how the database was set up. And since then, other services have come along, and it's been bolted onto. And it's quite obvious that Communals was bolted on in a hurry.
It was.
Because obviously the Communals are one step abstracted from houses. So there's a layer of points where we collect from that has nothing to do with the UPRN properties. So obviously that was something I had to do to put the data in Bartek, and that was create all these dummy UPRNs, which at the time was an issue. Because you had this system set up that you needed a road, and there was an external provider of information, which was just awful.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
I think what we I don't know if we're quite there yet. What we'd like to get to is where you don't have to worry about the UPRN. You just click on the map and go, there's a bin here. And what the reader will give you that, there's a bin here. We have to have a UPRN for it to link to, but you can just pick the nearest one or the nearest street. That doesn't matter because the in-cab should take you to the spot.
Well, that's basically what we had, because that's what we had to do to digitize the data. Is I set up a system in ArcMap and Access, would you believe? And it was, I had a member of staff, and we drew up paper maps and sent them out with a folder full of paper maps and go, put X's where the bins are and what they are.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. They went out and went X 940, X 1280, X, and we had to digitize. It was me and my team had to digitize what they were collecting. So that was creating what you want, the layer of, there's a bin here at this XY. It is our descriptions is for the crew, not who they serve.
No.
So it's to get the crew to the bin. So it might serve a different street or many streets, but we'll say it's between 13 and 15 Knockert Street. Because that's where the bin is.
Yes.
That's where we want them to go to empty it.
Yeah.
It's not who owns that, who uses that bin.
No.
Because there's that one and that one and a bit of that one and uses it. So it's a different beast, communal collections, to the general household, easy to identify who, what, when and where.
Yeah.
So it's definitely better.
Yeah.
The system's much better. Cloning a UPRN that's close is a hell of a lot better idea than what was.
Yeah.
But still, it is shoving something in a database because that's a table that's most likely to hold that information and restricts the flavour of what you can do.
You might like
with
what
it.
we're going to show you this afternoon.
Cool.
You might.
Yes. Which
really plays into what we're talking about, sensors as well. We've done a lot of work recently, and we've got a nice video that I'll show you as well. But we've done a lot of work on the litter bin problem, which is not totally dissimilar to the communal bin. A communal bin is a big litter bin, if you like.
Yes.
We've got a QR code based system which does a lot of what the sensor does in terms of proof of collection, gathering some information about how full it was or whether the bin was damaged, but it does it with one button that the collector can use. And as part of that, we built in the "there is a bin here" function on there, which I'm surprised you haven't actually got it on there yet, but I'll ask Paul about that, because you should be able to get that software on there now to create a feature.
We could talk a bit about how this could be improved, this system, because as I say, it's 90% there.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I think, I wish it would act this way. The functionality is there, but I wish it would act this way. It would just make the quality of life standing there easier. Let's say doing the tagging thing. But no, it's for how quickly you did it for us. thumbs up.
Yeah, because I think the first one we did was really clunky, and then we've improved it. We did a sort of quick round of improvements to make it usable but not great. And I think we're probably into the phase now where we want to make it great.
Yeah, it's definitely usable now with the delete the erroneous tags, because that was the first thing we did. The very first location we went to, we scanned it and went, well, that's wrong.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you.
Just the tagging was wrong, wasn't it?
The tagging was wrong. It's like, oh, the only option I've got is to move the bin to the right place, but then what do I do here? There's going to be no schedule. So if I continue this and move hundreds of bins, all the schedules are going to be wrong.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Email. And you did, a couple of weeks later, come back with a much improved version. So, yes. So as we say, it's just slight improvements. I mean, where was I? I was at some RAP meeting in Stirling recently. I think it was RAP. Something like that anyway. There's a few councils there. And they showed us a AI tracker thing on the back of the truck. And they tried to sell it for this purpose, for what they were selling it for. And I stood up and said, well, that's absolute rubbish. No way you can use it for that. However, the system for bulk bins is absolutely what you need for gathering the intel to route them properly. What they were selling for contamination, but they missed a trick for people that are like me, they've got a lot of communals to collect. Because if you can imagine an estate, the crews drive up, they stop in one place, but it's not one collection. It's not a one-in-one collection. No. They scatter to the winds. Sometimes the truck sits there for 5-6 minutes while they go and gather bins from all over the place, bring it to the truck, bang them on, and pull them back. So the routing algorithm I have to use for bulk bins is a bit of a kludge, because how long does a bin take to empty? If I aggregate like the 6 collections they do for 1.5 minutes each, I get way too much time. But this system that they showed could be adapted to monitor what, when, where, and how long very quickly. And because that's what we did with the GoPros. We strapped GoPros in the back of the trucks. We took a picture every 2 seconds. We also had a little box, tiny little thing, about the size of the microphone thing. And that was a GPS logger.
Yeah.
So both were at UTC. So you knew the picture was at a certain time. You knew the GPS. You knew where you were. So you knew where every picture was every 2 seconds. And we had a piece of software that stripped all the pictures of the truck moving out and just left you with the pictures of the truck standing still. And we just looked, well, they're just turning right. Get rid of that batch. Oh, they're doing work. So from this time to that time, they did XYZ bands. Fantastic. But you can see there's many points of failure on that system. So
if I'm understanding this right, so you've got at the moment, with the RFID tags, you've got a record of every lift taking place, and you've got the tracking on the truck.
Yes.
So you do have everything you need there to be able to say the truck stops here and then it picks up 6 bins before it moves again. So therefore your service time for the 6, it's a stop that deals with 6 bins and it takes 5 minutes.
The timings are not granular enough.
Okay.
We even struggled, well, not struggled with the 2 seconds, but the 2 seconds was pushing it for... And that was the pictures, not the GPS was like 3 or 4 readings a second. The pictures being every 2 seconds was just enough to do what we wanted to do. You really need it real time to get what you would want in an ideal world.
So what were you taking from the pictures?
We were taking from the pictures what the bins were and how long, because the pictures were time stamped.
Yeah.
So from the time the vehicle stopped to the time it moved again, we counted how many bins that they did.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know where they were coming from.
No.
We knew where they stopped. We knew how long they stopped for.
But you've got the tagging now, so you would know they were coming from.
Yes, that's the bit that we didn't have then. So if we could add the tagging on to that and say, that's what you do when you're there. When I build up the routes, because obviously bulk bins is a multi-day problem. It's not just one bin in one day. It's twice a week. Some of them are 6 days a week. We should really do them 7, but we dropped the Sunday for budget reasons in the city centre. So fitting a sensible pattern of collections in for communal collections is a lot harder than doing wheelies.
We've built a stop analyzer for Fleet Route. So Fleet Route's got a stop analyzer built in, but it's quite manual. And we've built something for Dorset that basically
It was Fleet Route that did it.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Paul Patterson came over with, what's the name of the other guy? I forget.
George or Lars.
It was Lars that came over.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lars was over for a week.
Okay. When did you do that?
2015.
Right. Yeah. Long while ago then. Yeah.
It was.
So we've just built on top of that because we've replaced that because one of the issues we had at Dorset was they've got a lot of places, and I initially dismissed this as being sort of too much detail. It wasn't necessary, but I've changed my mind. They were trying to understand the time to serve a sister collections because they've got some of the sister collections that were 3 minutes long, and you only need a couple of dozen of those on a route, and it's made a massive difference to your productivity. Yeah. So they were trying to figure out where those were, and they were trying all sorts of things, and we sort of basically used an algorithm based on the data we've got from the telematics and where the assists are to actually spot those long service times. So I think we could probably have a look at doing something similar with the data you've got now from the RFIDs because we know where the vehicle is, we know how many lifts it's done and which bins it's lifted. And from that we can build a stop analysis. So in Fleet Route, rather than sort of planning each bin, you plan the stops.
Yes, that's what you want. You want to plan the stops rather than what is. So you need to say, drive to here, collect that, bang. Yeah. Drive to here. So that is what you'd want for routing bulk bins, definitely.
Yeah. And it actually simplifies the optimization as well because you
use less points.
Yeah. 5 points suddenly becomes 1. So the optimization is almost a much easier problem. So it processes faster. We'll have a chat about that.
Definitely.
See what we can do.
This is all a whole different bit for me because Bartek does all the waste on the system. I only do a tiny proportion. I do garden waste only, and that's really where my knowledge is. I've kind of injected a bit of food waste in the last year, but all the rest of it is like mind blown. I can't even visualize how that works.
Obviously, I've had to challenge myself, learn how to use ArcMap and all kinds of stuff to do the data processing. Thankfully, I've got a degree in IT, so I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to teach myself C#. I'm getting better. I'm past the stage of it's magic, but I'm still a bit black boxy in some bigger things. But I can make systems work now. Yeah. So I've always had an interest in how things work technologically wise and why they work and all that kind of stuff.